We all know that sex sells, but what happens when sex isn't enough? We can see what happens when sex isn't enough by looking at Sam Levinson's newest piece of work called The Idol. Hollywood overall has a massive problem when it comes to the glorification of SA. We can see this with the unnecessary inclusion of SA scenes in shows like The Last of Us, Game of Thrones, and especially for today's video, The Idol by Sam Levinson. In today's video, we're going to be talking about The Idol, sex exploitation as seen in the media, and graphic SA scenes and how they affect their audiences. So if you're interested in that, keep on watching. Hi guys, welcome back to Ella Pastoral. And as you guys saw by the title as well as the thumbnail, today we're going to be talking about very hard, tough topics. So if discussions of SA are too triggering for you, please take the time to take care of yourself and do not watch this video. But before I can dive deep and talk about how The Idol is just another example of how Hollywood as an industry loves to glorify SA, especially of women, I want to talk about what exactly is sex exploitation. According to Quebec.ca, sexual exploitation involves a person profiting off the use of another's body in a sexual manner in order to benefit financially and or otherwise. But in general, the perpetrator of sexual violence takes advantage of their victim's vulnerable or dependent state, including addictions to drugs or alcohol. The perpetrator can be male or female, an adult or a minor, and can act for their own personal gain for the benefit of criminal enterprise, street gangs, and or organized crime. And even though this quote is specifically talking about sexual exploitation as we can see in the real world with real life victims, I really feel like this definition can still be related to what I want to talk about today. And this has to be the glorification of SA in media. I just wanted to take a quick break from the regularly scheduled content to thank all of my Patreons who are currently subscribed to my Patreon. Thank you at Harriana Hook, Blythe, Charlie, Alex, and Brian for all subscribing to my Patreon. It seriously means a lot. If you want to be included in my Patreon shout out, please make sure to subscribe to my Patreon. We have a lot of fun things to offer over there. And now let's get back to the regularly scheduled content. So the main reason why I want to talk about The Idol has to be with the fact that not only did it flop, but I really feel like if we look at the long history of Sam Levinson and his work, we can see that this man is a creep. I did a whole Euphoria series right here if you guys are interested, and I really feel like the main problems that have to go with Euphoria have to do with sexual exploitation, as we can see in the show. The main problem that I have with this man is that there's several problems that I have with this man, but the first thing I'm going to talk about has to be the inclusion of teen sexual exploitation. So all of the characters in Euphoria that actually matter, I feel like all have to be teens. But we can see the exploitation of teens and their sexuality mainly through the main character of Cassie. As you can see right here, Cassie is continually over-sexualized. There was a scene in Euphoria where she was on a carousel ride and she was getting off. I have no idea why this was included. Well, I do, and it has to do with the fact that I really feel like Sam Levinson has a porn addiction, and due to the fact that he has this porn addiction, he does everything in his power to have boobs and breasts and sex on the screen. When my friend told me that Sam Levinson was involved in the creation of the movie called X, this is the prequel to the movie Pearl that everybody loves, I wasn't even surprised. Nobody that I personally knows could get through X because it was just porn with a plot. And I wasn't trying to watch no porn with a plot. But we can really see that Sam Levinson has an obsession with including sexual content in the things that he works in. I really feel like Euphoria was our first introduction to this nonsense because I talked about Cassie. Her sexualization gets extremely worse in season 2, where she's talking about how she will let Nate Jacobs control her, do all of these weird things to her. But something that people don't bring up when we talk about Sam Levinson and his weird sexual things that he be doing most definitely has to be the SA that we see with McKay. I know none of y'all remember McKay because Sam Levinson obviously doesn't remember McKay, but McKay literally goes to college in like season 1 or season 2. Only the Lord knows at this point. And literally he's with Cassie, I believe, and literally a group of his frat bros come and do these really weird sexual things to him, and I don't even think I can include visuals of it because it was like borderline so graphic. But I remember when we used to do Euphoria Sundays, me and my friends, I looked to my friends from side to side like, what the hell just happened? Like, McKay practically just got SA'd right in front of us, no trigger warning, no nothing, just boom boom pow, SA in your face. And literally Sam Levinson just forgot that, like, it wasn't like a major thing that happened to one of the characters on the show. And why was that included? Why was that included? But Sam Levinson has a tendency to have these weird, I can't even use that word without being demonetized, but violently sexually aggressive things in the pieces of work that he has. I really want to say that knowing how Euphoria was, we can see how pervy this man is by how he did The Idol. Just as a disclaimer, personally, I refuse to put myself through the horror and torture of watching The Idol. So I personally recommend watching this beautiful, elegant video that Kenny JD did, where she broke that joint down by episode. Kenny JD just makes great videos. I love that girl so much. Also check out her newest album or whatever. This show, in its original conception, was supposed to be a show that almost talks about the dark side of the industry, the dark side of the music industry. Personally, when I saw the original script or the original idea for this TV show, I thought it was going to be like almost representative of how Britney Spears was exploited with her issues with mental illness and her being sexually exploited for a lot of her life. That's what it was supposed to be before they fired the female director and put Sam Levinson and his perverted mind behind the show. And The Weeknd, with his god-awful self, kept talking about how he wanted to be more of a main focus. So that's why I really feel like The Idol just became a awful piece of work, because the original plot of The Idol was supposed to be about female exploitation, but practically ever since they let Abel, The Weeknd, and Sam Levinson behind the scenes and really let them have all the power, it became a real sick male fantasy about sexual violence towards women. And while I was watching Kenny JD talk about her main issues with the series, it really clicked to me that this Sam Levinson character is a pervert, because why did you make the show like this? So practically the basic plot of the show is about this girl, I think her name is like Jocelyn or something like that. She is mentally ill and she's suffering because of the fact that her mom just died and she's not handling it well due to the fact that she is in such a vulnerable state. She meets this dude, I think he's like a G-Day, and he's played by The Weeknd, and she practically joins his sex cult, and that's how the show is. Like, the show is about their relationship and how she's literally in a sex cult. And that seems like an okay, I guess, premise until you really dive deep into what happens with the show. A lot of people were like, well, at least this show doesn't have minors, but there's literally a scene where we see that there is a minor in this sex cult, and that Abel's character literally, he loves to take vulnerable people and add them to his sex cult and take over all of their autonomy. And with the fact that we have Sam Levinson directing this, and you know he loves not letting people have their full autonomy, I already knew that this was going to be sick and disgusting. It's just so much to talk about when it comes to The Idol. There's just sick things in The Idol that really make me gross out, and that's why I fully couldn't watch it, because I feel like it's too triggering, and Sam Levinson sucks at making shows, so it wasn't like I was missing out on a lot anyway. But the fact that there was just so much weird sexual things included in The Idol, I already talked about the minor being a part of Abel's, The Weeknd's character's sex cult or whatever, but the fact that there was just these tiny little plot details added, it really goes to show you the mindset of Sam Levinson. For example, one thing that really icked me the wrong way was the demonization of intimacy coordinators in The Idol. I will talk about why I feel like that's so extremely problematic, but one of the main things that really let me know that Sam Levinson is sick and he's a pervert is that the whole entire first couple of episodes really go to show you that Abel's character is manipulating Jocelyn because she's mentally ill due to the death of her mother. And instead of looking at this like this is the honest truth that happens in the Hollywood industry, we know about casting couches, we know about people like Harvey Weinstein, we know about the Me Too era. The show practically ends with Abel being the victim, because we find out that Jocelyn was the one who was manipulating him by lying about how abusive her mom truly was. And literally the whole entire, everybody who was watching the show, not me, was looking like, that's how you want to end the show? With the victim of sexual exploitation actually being the perpetrator of violence? And that just, it just irks me. It irks me a lot. I don't even know what to say. I really hope that with how hard the Idol flopped, a lot of people can see that Sam Levinson is just awful at his job. And even though he is a sexual pervert, I really feel like the work that he makes isn't even that good for us to be accepting it. Because when it comes to problematic people, if they're talented, we'll let them slide. But God, the Idol was just awful. I think they even cut down the episode because when I was watching Kenny JD's explanation of it, she does a really good job breaking things down. Even she was confused. Like the jump skips, the fact that Jennie was one of the antagonists, but she really wasn't. I really feel like it was such a fever dream. And the only people who were really keeping the show afloat was the K-pop girlies, because the K-pop girlies, they do love them some Jennie. But except for that, people weren't checking in for the show. And I really hope that the way that this show flopped will really allow Hollywood to stop giving Sam Levinson right. I don't want to see anything by him directed ever again. Like HBO, please. With all the recent news of Euphoria, the dude who played Fez died, and they said that they pushing Euphoria until 2025. At this point, it's given 2026. I'm hoping y'all just cancel the show and let the show rest in peace. And now that I've practically gotten all of my Sam Levinson hate out in the beginning half of this video, I really want to talk about how the plot of The Idol, as well as sexual exploitation, isn't just a thing that happens in TV. It's a thing that happens in the World War II. I really want to talk about the Me Too era. We all know that after it was exposed that Harvey Weinstein was a pervert, so many girls, so many women, so many young people, young boys, young gay men, how they all had to come out and be like, she's not lying. There is the casting couch. We are pressured to have sex with these executives in order to get up in Hollywood. And even with the whole strike that's going on, we really see that these workers are being exploited and abused. And the fact that Sam Levinson thought that he ate by making the victim, because it was obvious to us that Shawty was a victim, the big final bad guy in a twist away, in a Emnan Shalamalan. I'm definitely sure that's not how that man's name is pronounced. Making her the villain in this Emnan Shalamalan mega twist. He really thought he ate that. But he didn't. And I really want to have a testimony of one of my favorite actresses and how she was exploited, to really let y'all know that being exploited in Hollywood is real. We need intimacy coaches because IDKY, we're so into like sex scenes. But if we're gonna have all of these sex scenes popping up, popping in, popping out, we need intimacy coaches. And so the fact that Sam Levinson was practically trying to villainize the intimacy coach isn't right. But let me read Shawty's testimony for y'all. So if you guys don't know, I am a big House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones girly. I'll probably be doing more videos about that series because I love that series so much. But there is a bunch of problematic, crazy things that go on in House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. And so the article that I want to read you guys is called Emilia Clarke, Game of Thrones nude scenes were terrifying. The actor who played Queen Daenerys says she was pressured to shoot naked since the show, but is more savvy now. So the article goes to say Emilia Clarke has revealed that she felt uncomfortable acting in some of her nude scenes in Game of Thrones. The British actress played Queen Daenerys Targaryen in HBO's sprawling epic, which is notorious for its explicit portrayal of sex and violence. Clarke, who was 23 when filming Game of Thrones, said that she was in tears before shooting certain terrified nude scenes. Speaking on actor Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, she said, I took the job and they sent me the scripts and I was reading them and I was like, oh, there's the cat. But I'd come fresh from drama school and I approached it as a job. If it's in the script, then it's clearly needed. This is what this is, and I'm going to make sense of it, and that's what I'm going to do, and everything's going to be cool. Regardless of there being nudity or not, I would have spent the first season thinking I'm not worthy of requiring anything. I'm not worthy of needing anything at all. Clarke, now 23, said that she had imposter syndrome times a million, but credited Game of Thrones co-actor Jason Momoa with protecting her. On the podcast, Shepard brought up a season 1 scene in which Momoa's character Khal Drogo virtually Daenerys on their wedding night. It's only now that I realize how fortunate I was with that, because that could have gone many different ways, because Jason had experience. He was an experienced actor who had done a bunch of stuff before coming onto this. He was like, sweetie, this is how it's meant to be. This is how it's not meant to be, and I'm going to make sure that's the effing gaze. He was always like, can we get her effing robe? She's shivering. He was so kind and considerate and cared about me as a human being. And I just want to talk about the backlash that came from this interview. I was on Twitter when I saw this, and so I decided to do a little bit more research, but a lot of people were just dogging her for this. She was just practically saying how much she enjoyed the way she was treated on the MCU set versus the Game of Thrones set, and people were like, oh, the MCU is mid, the MCU is mid. She's only saying that because she is now working for the MCU. She really thinks she's all that. She's old now, so it doesn't even matter. And I really just have to say that this really exemplifies how young women and young femmes are treated, because what do you mean she's talking about how like she was treated awful? Because if you guys had watched Game of Thrones, you know Daenerys, yo, like she was the main person getting sexualized in season 1. So obviously I believe her. I don't know about y'all, but I believe her. And it's the fact that Jason Momoa had to come out and literally like advocate for her goes to show a lot. And that's why I had to give Sam Levinson the side eye for trying to demonize intimacy coaches, because intimacy coaches aren't there to be sticks in your mud. They're there to make sure that people don't get traumatized and have PTSD. Because if you guys had watched Game of Thrones, you know how violent the SA scenes be in that show. Just be coming out of nowhere talking about some surprise. We can even talk about Sansa and how there was that SA scene that I promise you wasn't in the books. Future me, editor me will fact check, but there was like no SA from what I remember. And the fact that Sam Levinson decided to villainize intimacy coaches, it really rubs me the wrong way, especially with how he loves adding sex scenes in his show. Like, don't do that. You're weird. You're being a weirdo. But it isn't just Game of Thrones that I personally feel like is super guilty of having unnecessary SA scenes. I really want to talk about The Last of Us. I personally haven't played the games, but one of my friends, she loved the Last of Us franchise, and she is really in depth to the whole Last of Us franchise or whatever. And so we've been keeping in contact in order to talk about the Last of Us TV show. She was disgusted when she found out that there was an SA scene included in The Last of Us, and she said that it wasn't like that in the books. And so I just want to read you a little quotey quotes like y'all know I love to do. So the article that I'm reading for you guys right now is called The Last of Us Episode 8 Confirms a Horrifying David Game Theory by Louis Glazebrook. In the original game, David showed the same kind of fascination for Ellie that was showed in The Last of Us Episode 8. However, the end scene of David and Ellie in Naughty Dog's The Last of Us game was much more ambiguous regarding David's attempted sexual assault and sexual feelings towards Ellie. Before Ellie kills David in The Last of Us game, he chokes her and says, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." The game makes it feel like David will kill Ellie with only a line of her being David's newest pet from a henchman spawning theories of SA. However, the allusions and ambiguity kept theories as just that, speculation without overt confirmation. The Last of Us Episode 8 makes allusions with more solid and a disturbing change that confirms David's harrowing intentions. The end scene of HBO's adaptation, in which David says, "The fighting is the part I like the most, there's no fear in love," before reaching down to Ellie's midriff as opposed to her neck, confirms his intentions to SA her. While the game hints at these motives, there is no doubt that HBO The Last of Us TV show makes it much more obvious in difficult to watch scenes. And if you guys are starting to notice something here, HBO has a tendency to go brazy with these SA things. And I think we really need to talk about it. I feel like we really need to talk about it, because I already talked about Game of Thrones. Now I'm talking about The Last of Us. I'm talking about The Idol. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. Y'all already know I love House of the Dragon. Shameless plug-in for my House of the Dragon video right here. But I've read some book spoilers for the stuff that's supposed to happen in season 2. And there was a character, she's mad young in season 1. And I feel like when season 2 is going to be released, she's going to be old enough. And with HBO's tendencies to show graphic SA scenes, your girl is shaking in her boots about this season 2 that's coming out, and I'm not looking forward to it at all. But it isn't just HBO. Like, I'm not trying to just throw them underneath the bus. There are some shows that do include SA scenes, graphic, unnecessary SA scenes that I've been wanting to make a video about it. When these SA scenes were included in the TV shows, I didn't have a YouTube channel to talk about how much they disgusted me. But your girl has a platform. Your girl has a voice, so let's talk about it. The first show that really triggered me when I was a kid growing up most definitely has to be Reign. If you guys know Reign, Reign is a show about Mary Queen of Scots and her her very difficult marriage to Francis, who is currently the King of France. And that show was really, really good. I loved it. Obviously, it's not extremely historically accurate, seeing as the costuming was off and they changed so many things in Reign to make it just more like spicy in terms of the drama. That's why me and my friends were so confused about the SA of Mary Queen of Scots. Literally when that happened, me and my friends hard dropped the show. And now that I've done like a retrospective on it, looking back on it for myself, I did not know that there was as much backlash for this SA scene as there was. Literally, when I looked up Mary Queen of Scots Reign, it was like stop the reign. I can't even say the hashtag because you know how YouTube be, but there was just a hashtag like, guys, we don't want to see this, we don't want to see this, we don't want to see this. And the show when it was like, yeah, we don't care. Yeah, we don't care. So your girl has another article that I want to read to you. And the article is called The Rape of Queen Mary on Reign, posted by Melissa Bronstein. And it says here, many Reign fans have protested the storyline, but Mary's rape is a part of historical record, according to Reign showrunner Laurie McCarthy to Entertainment Weekly. These are real people, the royals who experienced kidnappings and assassinations, and there are many rumors as to whether Mary Queen of Scots was raped in her lifetime, and frankly, how many times. So we've just kind of plucked historical events from history. The rape that altered the real Mary's life occurred in Scotland in 1567 after the murder of her second husband and first cousin, Lord Darnley. According to the BBC, Mary's rapist, Lord Bothwell, is often depicted as a brutal, ruthless, and ambitious man. He is suspected of having murdered Mary's husband, Darnley. While some have doubts, we take the rape charge seriously. Such a claim would have harmed Mary's reputation by weakening her claim to inviolability as queen and potentially endangered her life and general safety. Rape would have proven human frailty rather than the aura of invincibility that the 16th century royals labored to protect. So raping Mary would have been a double violation of the social order, physically harming an individual woman as well as puncturing the royals' veil of omnipotence. The thought of having to marry one's rapist in order to rectify the dishonor of rape is also positively horrifying. Thank goodness Reign does not ask viewers to tolerate such a plot twist. Instead, we watch young Mary and Francis's happy marriage life, particularly notable for individuals not matched for personal suitability, stumble. Mary is left defenseless and alone in her palace room during a period of religious upheaval. Protestants, furious at Francis's actions, find her and one of them rapes Mary. She initially hides the truth from everybody, but slowly shares it with a tiny crowd of trusted friends and family. So the reason why I wanted to even read you guys the extremely long quote is to just show you guys the mindset of the showrunners. Personally, for me, this triggered me so much and caused me to hard drop the show. This caused my friends to do the same because I really felt like it was so unnecessary. I wanted to read you guys that long quote to really show you guys how the showrunners were thinking when they decided to include this, because they said that, oh, we included Mary's SA scene because it's very important to the political climate, this and that. But the political climate that happened to the real life Mary and the political climate of the Mary that got SA'd was completely different. The real life SA of Mary occurred after she practically lost Francis and after she lost her second husband too. And the SA scene that happened with the Reign version of Mary happened when she was still married to Francis. And I remember when I was watching this with my friends, because I decided to try again. Just give the show another chance. I hated how the aftermath of Mary's SA was portrayed, because practically after she was SA by the Protestant or whatever, Mary started doing Francis dirty. Like, it was obnoxious to watch. And I hard dropped the show. I don't even know what happened in the later seasons because I just felt like this was so unnecessary. And it was so graphic that they had to do one of those, if you are one of the victims of SA, called this hotline thing. And it literally just came out of left field for me. I don't know if this show was rated TVMA like HBO shows are, because at least for HBO shows, I know what I'm getting into. I'm about to see some effed up nonsense, but I was not expecting that from Reign. I really wasn't. And another show that's borderline like traumatize me for the rest of my life most definitely have to be the SA that was done to Julia in The Magicians. I'm doing a whole separate video on that because I really feel like that deserves its own major breakdown. But once that video is posted, y'all gonna see what I'm talking about. And if SA scenes aren't explicitly graphic, a lot of TV shows want to use them as a very cheap plot line. I already talked about it a lot in the Bridgerton series with this video right here, as well as this video right here. But the Bridgerton universe loves to use SA as a plot line. In Queen Charlotte, they used it as a very unfunny joke or a skit practically, where they had Queen Danbury continually SA'd by her husband, and they would use it as like a joke. Like, you know how sometimes scenes will go to another scene, it's supposed to be comical. That's how they practically did the continuous SA of Lady Danbury. Or even worse, how in season 1 they had Daphne SA Simon and then it was never fully addressed, and we were all just supposed to be like la-di-da-di-da-di-da, couple goals. It literally rubbed me the wrong way. But practically just to end my analysis of all of these shows that include SA, I really want to go back and talk about Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones loves doing this. And I just want to talk about it. According to the article, The Best and Worst Portrayals of Sexual Assault on TV by Rebecca Bonenheimer, Game of Thrones used this trope more than once throughout its 8th season run. The most obvious example happened in season 4 where Jaime Lannister assaulted his lover's sister, Cersei. The director Alex Graves commented on the scene when the episode first aired in 2014, saying that the sex was consensual by the end. His response does not seem to match what was shown on the screen though, as the scene features Cersei repeatedly resisting her brother's advances. It's bad enough that the director intended the scene to be an example of this trope, but Cersei's lack of consent makes the encounter indisruptibly a rape. Many shows are guilty of using rape as a plot device to take strong female characters down a peg or make them show vulnerability. Game of Thrones used this twice with Jaime's rape of Cersei and Sansa Stark's repeated rape by Ramsay Bolton. Neither of these acts of assault appeared in the book by George R.R. Martin that inspired the series. So these directors be going out of their way to include unnecessary SA scenes, and I really hope that you guys can get where I'm coming from. So I want to explain why I feel like the depiction of SA and all of these graphic scenes in Hollywood and Hollywood-led productions is just so detrimental. And guys, I have another article for you guys, and this is the article Normalizing Sexual Violence Through Media Fuels Rape Culture by Hannah Lee. A recent report by Centers of Disease Control and Prevention from 2020 explores how sexual abuse can lead to lasting serious consequences for real-life victims. The study found that common media depictions of sexual assault and rape tend to increase victim blaming and often influence the way criminal systems and public perceive female victims. It may also lead viewers to view rape as an act of sex rather than an act of violence. This type of media sends the message that sexual violence is normal or enjoyable for victims. Both abusers believe that mimicking this behavior is okay. And I just want to insert this tweet that I found on Twitter when I was preparing to film this video, and I really feel like they summed up my points exactly. A lot of men enjoy watching stuff like this, and a lot of these shows that are geared towards men or have a largely male audience, they seem to have a bunch of female SA scenes that I've noticed. I've also noticed a weird trope of I don't even know if I can say this, but the Orange is the New Black, as well as that awful show 13 Reasons Why, involve men getting brooms inserted in places where brooms shouldn't be. And I want to point that out because I'm just like, why do I keep seeing this? Why do I keep seeing this continually pop up on my screen? And I really know that the depictions of SA in TV are really allowing us to not be good people. Is that when the whole Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial happened, we can all agree to disagree about who's guilty, who's not guilty. But when Amber Heard was giving her testimonial about how Johnny Depp SA'd her, why were people mimicking this lady's SA testimony and making it a meme? Like, I remember there was just so many people under that sound making fun of her. And I just know that SA isn't treated like it's a serious thing. Look at how the Queen Charlotte show had Lady Danbury continually SA, and it was practically used as like a gag reel. I have a lot to say. In conclusion, it is very concerning and alarming that SA is being treated as a joke in Hollywood, with female characters being the most affected. Women are portrayed as being abused and using SA as a tool to become stronger. This portrayal of SA is problematic as it makes it seem that SA is something that doesn't destroy people's lives forever. It is personally time for Hollywood to take SA seriously and stop using it as a plot device. It is essential to represent SA survivors accurately and to show the devastating effects that SA can have on a person's life. By glorifying SA, Hollywood is perpetuating a culture that tolerates this heinous crime, and it needs to stop. The media has a significant impact on society, and it is essential for Hollywood to recognize its responsibility towards shaping public perceptions on sensitive topics like SA. Though the inclusion of SA in movies and shows might be aimed at creating a sense of realism or engaging the audience, it is crucial to remember that SA is a traumatic experience that can leave lifelong scars on survivors. If you guys got all the way to the end of this video, comment like banana or something so I know how many people actually watched until the end. This video was so hard to make because I had to talk about all of the triggering instances of SA in my favorite shows that I felt like were so unnecessary and so unwarranted. Let me know what you guys think of The Idol. The way the media glorifies SA and graphic scenes like this, and just let me know what you guys thought of this video. If you guys like this video, make sure that you hit this video with a thumbs up button. Make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can know when I release videos, and I'll definitely see you guys in the next one. Bye.